Hey everyone, in this Revizto learning session, we'll talk about working with Rhino models. So here in Rhino, I do have access to the Revizto 5 plugin, right? So I'll see, over where I would find materials, properties, I can export directly to Revizto, right? Bringing this model into my coordination platform. And if you don't see the plugins over here, the way to activate those, so there's, in later versions of Revizto, those should come in by default. But if you don't see them over there, so come up to File, Properties, and let me bring this into view. So you should be able to get down to Plugins, and then at the bottom of all your plugins, there's an Install. That'll take you to this path, right? So C, Program Files, Visera, Revizto 5, and then your bin files. And there's quite a few in here. The one you need is the RHP file. So if you come up here to File Type, filter for the RHP file, and then you should be able to see Rhino Revizto Export 5 RHP. That's the one you'll need. So grab that, hit open, hit OK, and then you'll see the plugin come in. So a couple things I like to do when exporting to Revizto. So, when we get into Revizto, I'll talk about how we can position models, but being that it's coordinate based when it comes into Revizto, one thing I find really helpful is to, in your model, just model a small point referencing the XYZ of the model. Right, so if I zoom into my 3D perspective view, I just draw a small cone shape, but it could be anything. And I'll show why I do that when we get into Revizto. But again, Revizto is positioning based. So in Rhino, if I know that I've drawn this and I can reference my XYZ values down here at the very bottom left, but I should be able to pretty clearly see, okay, I've dropped this sort of pin-like icon in the 000 positioning. And that'll make it really easy back in Revizto. If I do need to move things around or reference anything, it just gives me a point to measure to. So when it comes to exporting, keep in mind we can export a couple different views out of Rhino. And the views are specific to the view setting you have activated. So if I have rendered in my perspective view toggled on, that will read in any of the material I have mapped in Rhino into Revizto. If I switch over here to shaded, keep in mind it's going to read in all of the layer colors. So in this example, probably don't want the layer colors. I'm going to switch back over to rendered, and that's going to bring the material from Rhino into Revizto. So once that's formatted in our view, we can come up to the Revizto 5 export. So we'll select this guy. We can create a new project, link to existing project. I have this model in a project currently, so I'll just run through create new project really quick. So you can title the project, hit OK. And this is where to pay attention to this view, right? I want to pull in my perspective view that I, made sure I have a rendered setting for. So I'll select that in the dropdown. Viewpoints, we can toggle those on and off if we so choose, and then we're ready to export. So I'll cancel out of that, go into Revizto, and talk a little bit about, how the model came in. So again, looks pretty good with the rendered view setting. Again, something to keep in mind, the small pin icon and how I position this model. Where this is really helpful, for example, if I needed to move the site model in place in relation to one of the other buildings in the project, maybe the Revit model, now I have a really clear way of referencing where this model is positioned at the origin point. This pin representing the 000 value I brought over from Rhino. And now in Revizto, in the 3D environment, I do have a measuring tool up here, the spot elevation. And that also gives me a reference point to my 0, 0, 0 XYZ related. So I should be able to drop this. Sometimes it's funny when it snaps, but I should be able to get really close and see, okay, this came in. This pin is at 0, 0, 0. But again, if you needed to move it around, you now have a point to kind of reference. And if I needed to kind of find the delta of the corner of this building and move it into place in relation to this 0, 0, 0 point, pretty nice way to just orient those. The way we can move models around in Revizto. So if I come up to my object tree, I can see, I have all of these different file types. I'll go right to the Rhino site massing model I brought in. So when I right click on this parent file, at the very bottom of this dialog, I see a scene transform. And that's where, at that XYZ origin point, the 0, 0, 0, now we can begin to kind of shift models around and move things into place as needed. So this model came in okay. I had things positioned before I brought these in. But again, if you did need to move a Rhino model into place, sometimes with Revit, that's a little bit tricky with the different positioning systems. But hopefully, with the measurement tool, giving yourself a reference point in the Rhino model, that makes it pretty easy.